Tuvok's age is as mysterious as anything about this Vulcan, but one needn't look further in their search for loyalty and logic. As Voyager's security chief, he was fair, if a little rigid at first. As an ensign aboard the Excelsior, he made a mean cup of tea. Tim Russ almost appeared as another famous gold-clad character before donning the ears. One can hardly imagine a universe without the wry wit of the man from Vulcanus, the lunar colony. So, odd as it sounds, we're delighted he wasn't cast in that earlier part. With his reappearance in Star Trek Picard, Russ and Tuvok have been with Trek for more than 30 years, calmly reminding the audience that for every crisis, cool heads will prevail. He's the man, he's the myth, he's the Calto Supreme. He's also rather good at making sundaes. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Tuvok. Number 10. The Age of Logic. Just how old does a Vulcan have to be before they get any damn respect around here anyway? Tuvok was born in 2264, which puts him a little above the average age of the crew on Voyager. His Starfleet career began decades before even his oldest colleague attended Starfleet Academy, though a quick 50-year sabbatical delayed his progress through the ranks. His age remained a matter of debate while he served aboard Voyager, as he preferred to keep his private life, well, private. Paris and Kim attempted to figure out how old he was, though neither were particularly close. Captain Janeway came the closest, correctly identifying his date of birth, although somewhere along the way, records must have been scrambled, as the year of birth seemed up for debate. She congratulated him on nearing the big 3 digits in 2376, despite the man having already achieved said milestone 12 years prior. This is particularly egregious when one considers Tuvok and Janeway's shared experience, via a mind meld that deposited them on the Excelsior in 2293, during which experience Tuvok explicitly states he was 29 years old. Still, what's a little temporal drift between friends? Number 9. Of rights and pets. Though much of Tuvok's younger years are shrouded in mystery, or privacy as he might better put it, he does share similarities with other Vulcans the audience has encountered. As a young man, he underwent the Rite of Taloth. This was an endurance test that adolescent Vulcans often challenged themselves with, similar in many ways to the Kaz-Wan. The main difference between the two challenges is the time frame. Both require young Vulcans to survive with next to no additional resources in the Vulcan desert. The Kaz-Wan is a 10-day trial, whereas the Rite of Taloth is a 4-month ordeal. As a teenager, Tuvok, armed only with a ritual blade, engaged in the Taloth. With this behind him, Tuvok would later tell Chakotay that he found Starfleet Academy far less of a challenge. Tuvok's journey mirrors that of another famous Vulcan, Spock. Like Spock, Tuvok took on a challenge accompanied, according to Mike and Denise Okuda on the text commentary for Yesteryear, by his very own Selat pet. We'll just hope that Tuvok's Selat had a happier fate. Number 8. Combing through Trek roles. Tim Russ was no stranger to the Final Frontier when he was cast as Tuvok. He had previously appeared in the Mel Brooks comedy film Spaceballs, combing the desert and coming up trumps. He had also appeared in Star Trek before, though he almost nabbed a recurring role around the time he wasn't finding shit. Russ auditioned for the role of Geordie LaForge while The Next Generation was still in pre-production, though lost the role to LeVar Burton. Though he got as far as screen testing, it wasn't his time. He did, however, appear in the 6th season episode Starship Mine as Devore, one of the terrorists attempting to steal trilithium resin, though he became the ironic victim of a Vulcan neckpinch. He also appeared in Deep Space Nine before donning the ears, instead sporting a Klingon headpiece in Invasive Procedures. He then popped up on the bridge of the Enterprise B in Star Trek Generations, making him one of the few actors to appear beside several captains of the Enterprise, Kirk, Harriman, Picard, and, thanks to her promotion in Star Trek Picard, 7 of 9. Number 7. Early casting leads to high anxiety. Tim Russ was one of the first people cast on Star Trek Voyager. He recalled the immense pressure that everyone felt as they tried their hardest to make the show work. He had been cast alongside Roxanne Dawson, though Kate Mulgrew was yet to audition. This meant that he and Dawson were present for the screen test of another Janeway hopeful, Susan Gibney. She, like Russ, had appeared in Star Trek before, most notably as Dr. Leah Brahms. At this event, Russ recalled feeling extreme anxiety when preparing his performance. As it was the earliest part of production on Caretaker, Russ feared that getting any part of his performance wrong would lead to an immediate replacement rather than any consideration or time to change. He needn't have worried, as not only was his casting almost immediate, but he spent much of the next 7 years stood on the bridge, even as several other actors came and went. Number 6. A wise old Vulcan here to guide the hot-headed Klingon. As fans of Star Trek Voyager will know, Tuvok and Janeway have a relationship that predates the mission to the Badlands, though this was not the initial focus of the character. According to the series Bible, Tuvok, described as much older than he ended up becoming, was planned to become a mentor to B'Elanna Torres. This version of Tuvok was going to be around 160 years old, a widower, and the father of 4 children, 3 of whom were in Starfleet. Though he would have a strong relationship with Janeway, his paternal, or grandfatherly, presence would serve as a source of comfort for Torres. Though some aspects of this version changed, the Bible notes that his calm, logical demeanour is comforting to her and reassuring that one's volatile instincts can be contained. There are examples of Tuvok and Torres exploring her temper through the series, Barge of the Dead being one such example, but this seems to have been adapted for another Tuvok-centric story. Number 5. The Killer Inside, Meld. Meld was one of the first big Tuvok episodes of Voyager, featuring Tim Russ playing an almost two-hander with guest star Brad Dourif as the murderous betazoid Lon Suder. Suder's betazoid nature was in fact at Russ's suggestion, which was a small part of a long, arduous writing journey. Michael Piller bought Mike Sussman's idea of Tuvok encountering an alien serial killer, then expanded it into the episode as seen, though with a lot of help. Piller recalled beginning the script with one question: how would Tuvok, a Vulcan, react to random acts of violence? Though he hired a consultant to help him better understand criminal minds, he found the last act a true test. Jerry Taylor and Rick Berman helped Piller focus the ending on capital punishment, asking the audience to consider whether it was the search for justice or their violent impulses that drove the need for capital punishment. Suggesting that Suder be a betazoid was Russ's explanation of why Tuvok felt the meld so severely. He had melded with humans before and been shown capable of handling those emotions. Betazoids, passionate and empathic by their nature, offered, to Russ, a greater potential to challenge a stoic Vulcan. Number 4. Factoring in Tuvok's prime motive. The first season episode Prime Factor saw Tuvok betray Janeway, covertly acquiring Sicarian technology before coming clean to his captain. The original scripted ending for the episode was a straightforward, angry dressing down. Janeway would reprimand Tuvok and life would continue apace. Tim Russ felt that this ending didn't give enough weight to Tuvok's actions. The pair had a pre-existing relationship before becoming stranded in the Delta Quadrant, including years of built-up trust. Janeway had to feel truly shocked and betrayed, but Tuvok had to explain himself as well. The script, Russ recalled in Captain's Log Supplemental, the unauthorized guide to the new Trek Voyages, was changed around 30% to accommodate his input, though he regretted not being able to add more context. He felt that Tuvok's choice, that this course of action was the only logical one available to him, stemmed from his attempt to protect the captain from a full-scale mutiny on the ship. He and the writers were quite close in how they viewed Tuvok's motives, even if those motives didn't make it into the final shooting script. Number 3. A working knowledge of Vulcans saved Flashback. Star Trek Voyager got in on the celebrations for the franchise's 30th birthday with Flashback, the third season episode that saw Tuvok serving aboard the USS Excelsior. George Takei and Grace Lee Whitney, along with a host of familiar faces, reprised their roles from Star Trek VI The Undiscovered Country, though the script for the episode initially came up short. While much of the production focused on recreating scenes and sets from the earlier film, Tim Russ concentrated on his character, more specifically the scene in which Tuvok explains to Janeway why he left, then returned to Starfleet, was rewritten at Russ's behest. In Cinefantastique, Volume 29, Number 6 and 7, Russ recalled being delighted with Brannon Braga's edits to the script. He called attention to the explanation as written, which Russ felt simply didn't work. He was then surprised that Braga wrote a page and a half of dialogue for the scene, fully explaining Tuvok's thinking, thus fleshing out the character a little more. Russ, extremely pleased, was surprised, believing that changes like that rarely happened in the industry. Flashback may be best remembered for bringing Sulu, Janice Rand and the crew of the Excelsior, and Kang, back to Trek, but it is also a critical episode in understanding how Tuvok's mind works. Number 2. Tuvok in other media. Tim Russ directed the fan-made film Star Trek of Gods and Men in 2007. This non-profit story was a celebration of 40 years of Star Trek, while also bringing back many actors and characters from all then existing iterations of the franchise. Russ pulled double duty, switching from the director's chair to appearing on screen as Tuvok again after a gap 6 years. He brought with him not just his deep knowledge of Trek lore and Vulcan lore, but also years of experience behind the camera. The film was captured on digital cameras, with Russ employing handheld techniques that were quite different from the standard 3-cam setup of the original series. This, according to producer Sky Conway, helped Russ break the mold of standard television shooting. The film proved to be a success and is currently available for free on YouTube, and did a lot of heavy lifting when it came to rehabilitating Alan Ruck's Captain John Harriman. It is, however, not the most recent appearance of Tuvok on screen. Number 1. The changing face of a certified captain. Tuvok returned to our screens, albeit in a rather chilling manner, in Star Trek Picard's 3rd season episode, Dominion. Here, audiences were unsettled by the wide grin that stretched across his face, owing to the changeling interlopers' enjoyment of their duplicity. Thankfully, Tuvok himself returned in The Last Generation. Both versions, however, were of course played again by Tim Russ. He spoke to Will Wheaton on the Ready Room about the process of refinding the character, though he joked to the former ensign that he was never really far from Tuvok to begin with. Though Star Trek Legacy seems to be as far as it ever has been from being greenlit, Russ was keen to reprise his role in Picard, so one hopes that if, and when, the call comes in for an appearance again, he will don the ears, arch an eyebrow, and bring that cool, friendly logic back to our screens once more. Thank you so much for watching along. I hope you enjoyed this. You are awesome. You are always going to be awesome, and I'm delighted you delivered. Please make sure you follow us on the various socials. We're at TrekCulture, and please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. We really appreciate it, and every time you do it, it makes such a huge difference. So thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. I will see you again soon, my friends. Make sure, now more than ever, that you live long and prosper. Thanks very much.